Hello there, my name is Ramshashanti Haidar Choudhury. In this video, I will be covering numerous SQL topics. This will be like a full overview of the basics of SQL. I will be providing some detailed demonstrations on queries, which we will also learn about in this course. This course is designed for beginners who want to get a head start in this interesting programming language. This will be also helpful for students who is taking SQL course in college next semester. So these are the topics that I will be covering in this course. We will begin with database on which SQL is based on, database management systems, tables and keys, structured query language, SQL itself. I will also show you how to install MySQL Workbench. It is the tool in which we write our SQL queries. WAMP server installation. We need a server to connect our MySQL Workbench. We will learn about queries, SQL data types. We will learn about some functions like creating tables, inserting tables, updating tables, deleting tables. We will also learn about constraints. We will go through basic queries, joins, last but not least, unions. However, I did not cover some topics like aliases, truncate, etc. As a person dives further into SQL, it gets more complicated. My main goal here is to give people an idea on what SQL is all about so they can understand the harder topics when they will be learning them in the future. So if we are wondering on what we are going to work with SQL on, it's actually database. Now what is database? Database is referred to as any collection of related information. Examples of databases include phone book, shopping list, employee records, etc. There are many ways by which we can store databases, like in a computer, in tables, etc. So in this slide, we are going to take a look at what are database management systems. Database management system is a special software that facilitates the creation and maintenance of a computerized data. Database management system helps with a lot of processes like a large amount of information can be handled easily. Data can be imported or exported from one device to another. Users can send each other data. Interaction with software applications using programming languages like SQL. In database, there is a lot of information. We need to make sure that it stays safe. So database management systems make sure that there is security. Also, in case any data gets lost, database management system makes sure that there are always backups. Here we are going to talk about what are tables and keys. Tables are created based on entities. Now what is an entity? An entity is an object in the real world with an existence. Here employee and department are entities. We are going to keep information about these entities in these tables. The tables will have attributes. The attributes are characteristics that describe an entity. Here, employee ID, name, age are the characteristics of the employee, and in this table, department and employee ID are the characteristics of department. Some attributes in these tables can be identified as keys. There are some types of keys, primary keys and foreign keys. The primary key uniquely identifies each record in a table. Like here, for employee, employee ID is the primary key of this table. Every individual has a different employee ID. It's unique. Like for Mindy, it is 1, for Julie, it is 2, and for Rob, it is 3. No two employees can have same employee ID. So here, employee ID is the primary key of employee. It is good to mention that there can be no null values for the primary key. Like here, every employee must have an employee ID. This is because the employee ID is the only way you can identify someone in a unique manner. On the other hand, the foreign key is a key in one table that refers to the primary key in another table. Like here in the department table, employee ID is the foreign key of this table as it is referring to the primary key employee ID of the employee table. Here we are going to talk about what is SQL. The full form of SQL is Structured Query Language. SQL is a programming language used for interaction with relational database management systems. SQL helps with the following processes. You can create and manage databases. You can create, retrieve, update, and delete any specific data. You can also create and design databases, tables. So here the idea is that SQL can be used to work on specific information from a large amount of data. Here I will be showing you how to install MySQL Workbench, which is the tool used for writing queries. MySQL Workbench is a system software that integrates SQL development, administration, database design, creation, and maintenance into a single integrated development. The operating systems that support MySQL Workbench are Windows, Mac OS X, and Linux. This tutorial is for Windows. First of all, you will go to your favorite browser. I am using Google. Then type mysql.com, which will display these informations on screen. You will select download. After clicking download, you will be taken to a page. As you will scroll down, you will see this option, MySQL Community Downloads. You have to click on it. This will take you to a page which will show you these options for download, MySQL Community Downloads. Since this tutorial is for Windows, you will have to select MySQL Installer for Windows. This will take you to the page where you will see this option. So this will be the latest version of MySQL Workbench. Select download. Then your screen will look exactly like this. In the bottom you will see no thanks, just start my download. Click on it. Then you will see some download action taking place. After downloading, click the downloaded file, which will display this welcoming message on screen. Select Next. Then your screen will display the options that you will need to choose. So you will need to choose the latest server, Workbench, and Shell. After selecting them and marking them checked, you will click on Next. After Next, you will click on Execute. Then the server, Workbench, and Shell will start executing and downloading. After these are downloaded, MySQL Workbench is fully downloaded in your Windows. In order to work with MySQL Workbench, we need to connect it to a server. WAMP server is usually used, which is a web development platform on Windows. So on your favorite browser, again, you will type WAMP server download. You will select the first option, which will take you to this exact page. You will select download. However, you have to make sure that this WAMP server is from Open Source Excellence, as this is the server that successfully works with MySQL Workbench. After WAMP server has been successfully downloaded, you have to go to MySQL Workbench. There you will see the option for connecting SQL with the server, you will have to do that. Once you're connected with your server, you're good to work with MySQL Workbench. Here we are going to talk about queries. Queries are sets of instructions given to the relational database management systems that tell them what information the user wants to retrieve from the data. Queries help with these processes. A large amount of data can be handled easily using queries. User only needs a specific information. Usually there is a lot of information, so the user can only select the information that he requires. Here I have written a simple query which you can write in SQL. So in summary, I can say that you want the names of the employees from the employee table who are less than 25 years old. So here you're using the select command that returns a result or set of records from one or more relations. So this will be from the table employee. The employee table has information of all the employees, but you specifically want the names of the employees who are less than 25 years old. So here, where employee age is less than 25 years old, you're specifying that the employee has to be less than 25 years old. So after writing this query, when you select and run it, the screen will display the names of the employees who are less than 25 years old. This will be retrieved by the query from the data. Here are some SQL data types on which you will be working on. We got numeric data types, which are integer numbers of different sizes, like int for regular numbers, integer numbers, and small int for small integer numbers, and floating numbers of various precisions like float and double precisions. Character string data types of either fixed length, character n, or varying length, varchar n, where n is the number of characters. Bit string. These are data types of either fixed length, bit n, or varying length, bit varying n, where the default for n should be 1. Boolean. Data types where values are either true or false or null. We also have data types like date, timestamp, interval. So for date, there are 10 positions available where the components are year, month, and day in the form like this. 4 for year, 2 spaces for month, and 2 spaces for date. Timestamp data type, which includes both time and date. This is in the form date and time. So here you will have to put date first and then time, where H is for hour, M is for minute, and S is for second. Interval data type that specifies a relative value which can be used to increment or decrement, like increase or decrease by a specific amount, an absolute value of a date, time, or timestamp. So these are some common data types that you will commonly work with in SQL. Here we are going to discuss how we can write queries to create tables. Create command can be used in SQL to make new relations. You have to give the table or relation a name, where attributes, their types, and constraints are specified. So in the relation, data can be stored. Here, as you can see, I want to create a table to keep records of employees. This will have employee ID, their names, and age. Employee ID is an int as it is integer. Name is in varchar up to 20 bits. Age also in int. Here, keep in mind that employee ID is the primary key. It should be unique as we want to identify each employee using that. After writing this query, I will select this query and press run. This is the run button. So the table will be successfully created. Now in order to see how the table is like, you will have to write a comment known as describe, like I have written here. Describe comment is used to show what the table would be like. Of course, it will be displayed like this as we have not put any data in the table yet. So if you want to drop any table, you will have to use the drop table command. This will help to delete the table. And as you can see here, there is no information of these attributes. We will have to insert data into the table, which we will be covering in the next slide. Here we will talk about how we can write queries to insert data into tables. So this procedure typically inserts one or more tuples into a relation or table. Attributes should be listed in the same order. This should be done as the attributes were specified in the create table command. Here you can see I have written this query where I have written insert into employee values 1 Mindy 23. So here we are going to insert this information into the table employee. So here 1 is the employee ID, Mindy is the name, and 23 is the age. So previously in the create table query we have put the order like employee ID, name, and age. So we are following that order to specify the attributes. After writing this query, like after you have put more data into the table, you will select this option. You will select this query, which will display the table as you can see on the screen. So here is your employee ID, the name, and age of the employee. You will see that employee ID identifies each employee. Here we are going to talk about how we will write queries to update tables. Update can be used to modify a number of tuples in a table that will satisfy a specific condition. Let us think about a scenario. We want to change the department of an employee to another department. Suppose an employee is working in the biology department, but later he will start working in the software engineering department. So there is change of department that we want to keep record of in the employee table. So the update comment can be used to change a number of tuples in a table that will satisfy this specific condition. Update comment will cause attributes to be modified of one or more selected tuples of the same relation. Set clause can be used to specify the attributes to be modified and their new values. A where clause selects the tuples to be modified. Here I wrote this query in which the employee who worked in SC will now be working in biology department. You can see the first table where it says SC. After the changes, now it is biology. Like you can see here, it is Mindy used to work in the software engineering department, but after writing this query, after making some changes in the data, we can see in the table, Mindy is now working in the biology department. On this slide, I will be talking about deleting tables. Here we can remove tuple from the tables. A where clause is used that will select the tuples that will be deleted. Rows are deleted from one table at a time. So let us think about another scenario. An employee with ID number 2 no longer works. So we have to remove their data from the table. We will write this query. Here, as you can see, I have written the where clause. I'm specifying that the employee ID is 2. It has to be mentioned. So because we want to remove the employee with employee ID 2 as the employee no longer works there. After writing this query, I will select all from employee. As you can see, we can only see these two employees with the employee ID 1 and 3. We don't see the employee with the ID number 1 and 2 as we have deleted that from the table. However, it is important to keep note that if where clause is missing, all the information in the table will be deleted. If the where clause is missing, like here, suppose this is not mentioned, the whole table will be deleted. All the rows of the table will be deleted. On this slide, we are going to talk about constraints. Now, what are constraints? In SQL, constraints are predefined rules and restrictions that are enforced in a single column or multiple columns regarding the values allowed in the columns. This is to maintain the integrity, accuracy, reliability of the column's data. Some basic constraints are key constraint, integrity constraint, referential integrity constraints. Now, what are key constraints? Key constraint is a primary key value that cannot be duplicated. Here it means that no two primary keys can be identical. Like here, you can see for this data, like for Julie, employee ID is 2, for Rob, employee ID is 3. Their employee IDs cannot be same, like it cannot be 2 for Julie and it cannot be 2 for Rob as well. So they should always be different, like their employee ID should always be different as it is the primary key. We use the primary key to uniquely identify someone or something in the data. Entity integrity constraint means a primary key cannot be null. As you can see here, like in this query, I have mentioned not null after name varchar. This means that in the table, all the primary keys should have attribute, should have name. There can be no one with no name. That is what I meant. So like here I have put null here. Suppose there is no name for this tuple. So if I select it and try to run it, this will show error because we cannot put null here. We have put the constraint that this attribute cannot be null. The other type of constraint is referential integrity constraint, which means that the foreign key must have a value that is already present as a primary key or may be null. Here are some attribute constraints: null, as I have mentioned here, not null, like I have written here, unique, default. I'm going to briefly explain what are unique and default constraints. Here for this I have written unique department varchar unique means that each employee should work in a unique department. Like there are 3 employees, one should work in software engineering department, another one should work in computer science department, and the other one should work in biology department. So 3 different and unique departments. So I have mentioned unique here. Here, default is used to enter something when there is no specific data for an attribute. Like suppose we do not know the department in which an employee is working. So we have mentioned here default NA. So we don't know where the employee is working. So when we select and run the table, it will show this: the employee ID, name, age, department NA, because we do not know in which department the person is working in. Here I will be showing you some examples of simple queries. I have written here a query, select name, age from employee. Here I only want to know the name and age of the employees from the employee table. So when I have written and selected and run it, here I can see the table where this shows the names of the employees and their ages only. Another example is here I want to display the information of the employees. Their ages are displayed in ascending order, for which we will use the order by clause. Here I have written select all from the employee table, all as in all the attributes, and here the condition is order by age ascending order, like the ages are arranged in ascending order, like increasing order, like here 23, 25, 27. So this is the simple query. Here similar thing can be done. We wrote order by age descending order. The age is arranged in descending order, 27, 25, 23. So these are some simple query examples that I have shown here, which you can easily do with SQL. On this slide, I will be talking about what are joins. Joins combine columns from one or more tables into a new table. Some types of joins are inner joins, outer joins, left joins, right joins. Inner join returns records that have matching values in both tables. Outer join returns all records when there is a match in either left or right table. Left join returns all records from the left table and the matched records from the right table. Right join returns all records from the right table and the matched records from the left table. Here I have provided simple join syntaxes for each of the joins that are simple to follow along, and I have also provided here diagrams for each of the joins. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about union. Now, what is union? The union operator is used to combine the result set of two or more select statements. Here, every select statement with union must have the same number of columns. The columns must also have similar data types. The columns in every select statement must also be in the same order. As you can see in this example, I have created two tables. Now we want to combine all the names of the students and the employees into a single table. This is where union comes in hand. We will write two select statements, select name from employee, union, select name from student. So once we have written it, selected and run it, this will display all the names of the students and the employees into a single table. So here I will be ending my SQL beginners course. I have covered here the concepts of the basics of SQL. As I have mentioned earlier, some topics were not covered in this short course. This serves more like a brush up for beginners who want to have an intro to SQL. If you have come this far, thank you for watching.